Easy now. Papa got things making hands
come down. Ooh, you make my high come down. Always tripping when you come around. I'ma have to cut you off, like right now. You see, I don't want to drive me. You can say that for your mama. Maybe you should smoke some. Me try the marijuana. I was never you good. The vibe was straight. Showed you a couple of things and they ain't finna change. I treated you right. Everything was a gift from a time to your bag and the color on your lip. Yeah, you plenty of.
Welcome to the Seahawks Man-to-Man podcast, powered by The Athletic. Shout out to the company. My name is Michael-Shawn and Christopher. You can follow me on whatever Elon Musk is calling that app these days. My @ name has not changed, @ Mike Dugar, MikeDugar. Also, shout out to everyone who watches or listens, subscribes, everything on our YouTube channel, Seahawks Man-to-Man. That's man, the number 2 man on YouTube. We appreciate all of the love and support on there. Chris, go ahead and holler at him.
What is good, everybody? It's your boy, Christopher Kidd. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at CKIDD206. And I see Kid 206. My brain just for a second.
It's tough because Elon didn't change the name of the stuff, so we, it's cool. Blame Elon, man. But we're coming to you guys after the Seahawks season opening loss to the Rams. And for those of you who saw it, you know how bad it was. If you didn't see it, and we got some people overseas who listen to the show, maybe just like, I'm gonna sleep through this one. And I hear you because it was bad, so bad, in fact, that. As you guys know, I always ask for Twitter questions after each episode, after each game, good or bad. Just want to hear from you guys. This is a sample of some of the questions that we got. This shows you how bad the game was for the Seahawks today.
So we got Ted Sendejas. What week will Clint Hurt be relieved of his duties?
Oof.
Not off to a great start there. Another one comes from Adrian Sacco. Too early to start talking QBs in the upcoming draft? There is no chance Geno can take this team to a Super Bowl.
Oof. Yeah.
Dan Teeter. Are they closer to the Caleb Williams sweepstakes or the Super Bowl?
Oof.
Wow. That's a fancy way of saying that the Seahawks said what's up to the pavement on Sunday against the Rams, because I don't have much words for that and that beatdown. They didn't execute pretty much in all facets of the game, except for maybe one area, which we'll talk about throughout the show. But for everything that was hyped up about all the transactions they made, the players they brought in, players that they didn't bring in, players that they let go, hell, Jalen Carter got a sack today. Devin Witherspoon still rehabbing that hammy. No telling when he's back, hopefully week 2. But I know a hamstring is something that you really want to make sure you're 100% sure that you can play on. As Cooper Kupp, he's going to be on the IR for the next 3 weeks after week 1, obviously. Gets nervous with Devin. Hopefully he does return, because I'm sure they could have used him on Sunday against the Rams. But just looking at expectations for this team and what we saw Sunday against the Rams, that was not good, Mike. I don't have nowhere else to grasp and talk about things with this unit, but I'm thinking, the Seahawks will win the game, but it'll be a close win. No, they lost 30-13, man.
Yeah, that was bad. And those questions are overreactions, by the way. Like thank you for submitting questions. Those ones in particular, they're really just like, they're on the extreme end of the spectrum. But again, that does illustrate how bad it was, because you read those, and if you didn't watch the game, you're just like, dang, did they just get smacked by the Rams? And did everyone look bad? And the answer is yes. Pretty much. They got smacked by the Rams, 30-13, like Chris said, and pretty much everyone looked bad for the most part, with the exception of the run defense, which was actually very, very good. And we'll get into some numbers and some stuff that illustrates that point. But this was probably about as nightmarish a start as you could have imagined for the Seahawks. They have all these expectations, and to kind of maybe illustrate some of those, like I went around the locker room this week. The locker room was open for the first time this offseason, and I was asking guys, like, what the expectations for the season, what they hope to get out of this year, kind of generic, season preview-y type stuff. I had something due on Friday, so I was like, all right, let me write something. And then everybody was like, yeah, we want to win a championship. We feel like we got the talent in here. Like, look around the roster. They were like, look at this position group, look at that position group, look at our quarterback, look at our coaching staff. Like they felt like they have everything it takes to get where they want to go, which is to be the last team standing. And I was like, last year they said the same thing. Last year it kind of felt like a pipe dream. This year it at least felt like a realistic expectation, and I could see it. Like I could buy what they're selling, just in terms of like being the ultimate optimist. I could look around and be like, oh yeah, you got Bobby back, you got JB. The last time they played together, they had one of the best run defenses in the league in 2021. Like it's not hyperbole. It was like them and the Saints that had like the two best. The pass rush was top 10 in sacks last year. You're bringing most of those guys back. You get healthier in the secondary. You add some pieces there that I like. Trey Brown in particular. All right, you're cooking a little bit on offense. You were a top 10 offense scoring wise last year. You add JSN, you add Charbonnet. Like it seems like, okay, I see why you guys think you can get a little further. It all made sense to me. And then it stopped making sense at about 3:00 today. When I was watching, and the third quarter came around and the fourth quarter came around, I was like, wow, nobody's playing well right now. Like, and to be fair, one of the people I did talk to about expectations, actually most of the people did include the caveat, like everything can look good on paper. We got to go out there and prove it. I believe Gino in particular said that. And then the running backs coach, Chad Morton, was like, yeah, he rattled off all the good position groups to me. And then he was like, we have to be good, we have to be good on the field. I was like, okay, that's fair. And this is why they say things like that. Because, all of that stuff sounded good on paper. And then you get on the field, and it didn't come to life. So, for example, Seattle thought it would be much better situationally this year on both sides of the ball. And that was obviously alarming, but let's dig into some numbers, shall we? We start with the offense, Chris. You want to start with the defense when we talk about situational football here?
Let's start with the offense that drafted JSN. DK was supposed to be taking the next step. Unfortunately, we saw a little bit of immaturity today. He did have a touchdown, but cost his team. Tyler Lockett, unfortunately, got banged up. Ken Walker, he was okay. Offensive line, But go ahead, Mike. We'll get going here with these stats, these numbers.
So situational football is very important. It's something I talk to a lot of guys about in the offseason. Goal line, red zone, third down. Those are really 2-minute as well. Those are like the situations that separate the good teams from the bad teams. We've talked about this in the past. We've seen Seattle be really good on like first and second down and then be like awful on third down. I think the last year Russ was the starter, they were like the best first and second down offense in the league and then the worst third down offense in the league. And it was the most mind-boggling thing I've ever seen in my life. Right. And they changed quarterbacks, still bad. Like, for example, today they converted 2 third downs on their first drive and then stalled on the third one and they kicked a field goal. Right. And then they never converted another third down again. And you're like, well, Mike, they scored more after that. How'd they do it? Great question, listeners. The answer is they avoided third down on their one touchdown drive that they had. I went back and looked because it felt a little funky when I was looking back at my notes and I checked on my computer. They had first and second down only on the touchdown drive that ended with DK catching the fade over that poor corner who just got cooked on that. But yeah, there was only first and second downs on that. The entire rest of the game, it was just third down, incompletion, third down, incompletion, third down, incompletion. They ended up 2 for 9 on third down for the game on offense. So that's completing their first 2, then ended up going 0 for 7, 6 straight incompletions, and then Gino was sacked on third and 1,000,000, which that's not really anyone in particular's fault. Like most people don't convert third and 26 or whatever that was. As an example, the Rams today were nails on third down. Even they couldn't complete a third and 28, right? That just doesn't really happen. But still, 22%. Last year, the Seahawks were like 20th and third down offense or something around, I want to say like 38% or something like that. Like 38 is not great, but it's still within realm of the other teams in the league. 22 would have been dead last by a mile. Like last year, I think the Broncos had the worst third down offense at about 29%, kind of showing that Russ just has a third down problem. But let's let the Broncos figure that out. But that puts that number in perspective. 22% will be by far the worst in the league. And Chris, everything was going wrong. You got protection breaking down. And when I say breaking down, I'm not talking about guys necessarily getting beat. Like I think on a couple of those, one of them, Geno nearly throws an interception over the middle, targeting Jackson because he's got a free blitzer coming in his face because the whole protection slid to the right. And then a free blitzer just comes from the left side. You know, two guys come at Charles Cross. He takes the guy on the outside. There's no running back to help Geno. Geno just get rid of it. Nearly throws an interception to the whole player. It's like they're playing some man cover one on that one. They had another one where the protection broke down and Geno had to throw it at DJ Dallas's feet. Didn't get a chance. I think he had another one where he had to throw it at Ken Walker's feet. Like all of these are just like protection breaking down. Again, not even guys necessarily getting beat, not even on the same page. And this was before all of these things happened, I believe, before Charles Cross and Abe Lucas got hurt. At least those first two did. So it wasn't even necessarily, oh, we don't have our two tackles, now we can't protect Geno. It was just not on the same page. Then Jackson Smith and Jigba dropped one on third down. Then I went back and looked, and I was like, well, he probably would have been short anyway.
Yeah, he wasn't getting that.
Yeah, it was like 3rd and 5. It's like, well,
3 yards.
Yeah, it would have been maybe 3-4 yards. It was just so bad on all of those third downs. And this was where they were supposed to be good. This was supposed to be the money down on offense in particular. It's like, we're going to be good on situational football. When they drafted Jackson Smith and Jigba, it was like, all right, you're going to have to play man. If you play man on us, Jackson's open. You play zone on us, we're going to figure out the little holes in your zone and move the chains. And they just did not. And they didn't not do it against like the Cowboys or the Patriots or the Eagles, teams that have really good defenses, the Niners. Chris, I'm sorry to put you on the spot like this. Can you name 4 dudes on the Rams defense right now? First and last name?
Aaron Donald. Who's that? Oh, man. No, I can't. I'll be honest.
See, there you go. That's the problem here. They have Keller Witherspoon, Ernest Jones, and like some other guys.
Yeah, that's right. Keller Witherspoon. That's another one I know.
Well, yeah, the only one. Yeah, we know Kello, and then I forget. Someone I know knows Ernest Jones. So
yeah,
it also stands out because it's 2023 and we got a young brother named Ernest. I didn't know we were still doing that as a people. So that always like sticks out to me. It's like meeting a chick our age named Rose. It's like, wait a minute, we still doing that? I didn't know we were doing that. So that's the only reason why I remember Ernest. Point being, the Seahawks struggled today in the area they were supposed to be good at. And it's not just supposed to be good at it because it's the Rams. They're supposed to be good at it because they emphasized it all year. They spend every training camp practice on third down against the blitz. They spend third. Here's how they work on third down. There's a bunch of different ways, but they do it against the blitz. They practice third and short. Then they practice third and mediums. They also practice third and longs. They practice against base, sub packages, exotic blitzes, everything. Goal line, red zone, deep in their own territory. Chris, and then none of it worked. Absolutely none of it. And I think that is – it won't be as bad week 2, I don't imagine, because things are just never as good or as bad as they seem. It's kind of how life just goes. But if you're panicking or just overly concerned about the offense after today, like that is more than fair. It's not like fire Pete fair, but it's like, damn, man, how you work on something all offseason and come out and wet the bed on it that first game against a team that really is just Aaron Donald and a bunch of cats, you know, like that's – I won't call it embarrassing because the other team has the grown men too, but yeah, that's like whatever the word beyond disappointing is, Chris, I'll say it's that.
Yeah, it just the film study is going to be really telling. We talked about it off wax how the Rams offensively. I'm watching the TV broadcast. I'm seeing the same 2 double stack, 2-2 coming in motion. I know what's coming. They're looking for holes in the middle of the zone. And they're finding it consistently over and over again. Linebackers aren't getting depth. Obviously, I don't have the all 22 in front of me, but I'm guessing, a lot of linebackers not being where they need to be in that zone coverage because a guy that people probably never heard of, unless you're watching a lot of BYU football, and that's Pua Nakua.
Is that how you say his name?
Yeah.
Is the K silent? Yeah, about to say there's Puka. Puka is in there somewhere.
I meant to say Puka Nakua. He went for 10.
He was decent at the Senior Bowl too.
Oh, you probably saw him there too for sure. Okay. Mm-hmm. Then we got a chance to see what Tutu was all about because unfortunately, last season he wasn't healthy, but this year he was healthy and he was in motion, creating space, getting open, making play after play, and it was the same concept. But the Seahawks they couldn't figure it out. They couldn't figure, okay, they're running the same thing, but where are they going with it? And Stafford was making really tight throws, and his players were coming up with it. And I think those issues will be fixed because that's just a matter of studying, learning where you need to be, and making a play. Obviously, the Lions probably will not run the same play 100 times against you, and it's going to be successful. The hope is that the Seahawks do bounce back and they learn from their obvious mistakes that is going to be on film and they can see where they need to be moving forward. But it was just Gino said in the presser that he felt that the Rams wanted it more. And it's very rare that a player even admits that he thinks the other team wanted it more. But to hear him say that, that was kind of maybe alarming, thinking that you guys thought you just had it in the bag. The Rams are a division opponent. They're not going to lay down and let you get this win because they don't have Cooper Kupp. They want to win this game just as bad as you wanted to win this game coming into it. And I think they really came out flat. They probably expected this team to just lay down, and that's not what happened. I love how Sean McVay attempted to run the football. Obviously, we agree that the run defense was pretty good, but in the short situations, they were able to get and execute first downs, whether it be bringing two tight ends across the formation, pulling, two tight ends pulling, which is when I watched the Niners last year, I did that with Trent Williams. I had him in the backfield pulling, which that's cheating. You got a 350-pound lineman running full speed, picking up full speed and running across the line of scrimmage opposite of where he started. He's going to destroy a corner, a linebacker in front of him. And then the Rams said, you know what? We're going to use our tight ends and do that same thing. And the Seahawks were pushed back on those third down scenarios. Now, obviously, it didn't work throughout the game because if you look at the stats or if you just watch the game, they weren't able to break big gains. It was 3 yards, 5 yards, but those 3 and 5 yards resulted in first downs that kept them on the field, that allowed them to score touchdowns. They couldn't get off the field. And that has to be fixed because the Rams go 11 of 17 on third down, and then the Seahawks went 2 of 9, as you hinted earlier, Mike, 33%. That can't happen.
No, that's 22%.
Or 22%, excuse me. That can't happen, especially as you mentioned, everything they put into this season and what they wanted to do. The Seahawks brought in JSN for those specific third down moments. We need you to get open. And then Gino throws it behind him. If he catches it, he's still short. Those are things you have to fix. And I think those are fixable. Not all is lost. It's not as if they got beat by the best team in the NFL. The Chiefs came in here and did this to them. This was a team that they have nothing to lose. They know they have a really tough schedule, and the Rams, they do. They have a tough schedule. They don't have their star receiver, and everybody on that team stepped up. They played with the physicality, and they believed. The Seahawks, unfortunately, did not have that same mentality, and watching it on Sunday, I think people realized that, and that was probably the toughest thing, thinking, wow, this team has Super Bowl aspirations, but to come out flat on your first game, that's tough. And then I looked it up earlier, and this was back to I think it was 2017 this article was written. I'm not going to do a bunch of research on it, but how many Super Bowl champs lost their home opener? It was 9 out of 51. So nine teams out of those 51 that won the Super Bowl, 9 of them lost their home opener. That's a lot to ask. Now, this team could definitely do it, but that slow start that they had, you got to fix things pretty quickly. And I think they're aware of that. They know what they need to do. But as it says on our headline on YouTube, nightmare start in Seattle because there was not much good from the game.
Yeah, I think one reason that I don't think stuff will carry over the rest of the season in some regards is Sean McVay just has Pete's number. We've talked about this quite a bit because they play the Rams twice a year. Well, I think, the Jeff Fisher stuff, I think I was in college and not really covering the NFL like super closely to really know how much Jeff Fisher was doing. Like, I know Jeff Fisher had some good success against them, when he was the coach of the Rams. So I just don't know the specifics of it. Whereas I know I can attribute this stuff to McVay. I know it. Like McVay, this is the Mike Provides Numbers podcast of the year so far. Pete Carroll versus Sean McVay since 2017, which is when McVay took over. And remember that Rams team in 2016 was just doo-doo. So he took over a pretty not good situation. 2017, since then, Pete is 5-9 This is including the playoffs, because they lost to them the 2020 season in the wild card round at home with John Walford starting, or whatever you say, however you say that brother's name. 5-9, so 9 losses, right? Pete has been outscored by 86 points in his games against McVay. And Pete has only had one season in, let's see, how many years is that? 2017, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, right? That's 6 seasons prior to this one, right? Where he's only had one season where he's actually scored more points, right? Like won the point differential battle against McVay. And that was last year. He was +7. That's it. Every other year, Pete Carroll's teams have been outscored by Sean McVay. And right now they're -17. So they would have to beat the Rams in the rematch by 18 to end up in the plus. Obviously, they can meet in the playoffs. That changes things a little bit. But you guys get the point here. Like, McVay just knows how to beat Pete. He's blown Pete out. And I'd call a blowout like, let's loosely call 16 17? Or more. You know, let's go with 16 or more. Like, he's done that 3 times. Twice at home.
That's what I was saying. He did that on the Seahawks turf.
Yeah, like
on
this
the
dude.
Home opener.
And if you guys, I remember our podcast after the Seahawks lost to the Rams in week 5. I want to say it's the game that Russell gets hurt. The broken finger game. Now, obviously, Russell getting hurt was a big part of that, but defensively ain't got nothing to do with nothing. And we talked about they were running a variation of the same play. Then it was like this dagger concept. I think Ted Wynn at The Athletic ended up doing a film study on it. Maybe I can have Chris put the link to that in the bio, the YouTube link or something, because it breaks it down. It ain't it's the same thing over again. Today, same thing over and over and over again. But the situational stuff is something that can carry over. Like, I do think just being bad against the Rams and McVay, like I think that's just, you got to accept that as life. Even last year with no quarterback, no Cooper Kupp, and no Aaron Donald, the Seahawks only won 2 games against the Rams by a combined 7 points. Like, that should have been the sign to everyone that this was going to be a war, regardless of whether Cooper Kupp played or not. But defensively, man, the third down stuff was really, really troubling. The Cooper Kupp Matthew Stafford had 39 dropbacks today and was hit twice. Man. That reminds me of, Chris, you remember that game against the Cardinals? I think it was 2020, where Kyler had like 50 dropbacks.
Oh, and they had one hit?
It was either 1 or 0. Either way, it wasn't enough when somebody
Clint
drops
Hurt
back 50 times. Yeah, and at that time, Clint was only the D-line coach, but clearly, like, as the D-line coach, not getting to the quarterback you take personally, right? That was pretty bad. This gives me those same vibes. 39 dropbacks. And you only hit that brother 2 times, and one of them was by a DB. It was Kobe Bryant who got one of those hits.
Yeah, they got a flea flicker on that play. Yeah,
that was on a flea flicker.
That was the one time they did blitz.
Yeah, that's not like a genuine QB hit to me. That's, a trick play gone awry, which you get a QB hit for, but you guys kind of get my point. That's probably why I couldn't find that QB hit on my stats when I look back, because it was on a flea flicker and it was a little wonky. But still, man, 39 dropbacks. Only 6 dropbacks he was pressured on. I think 7 total, because 2 guys got credit for a pressure on the same dropback. So 7 pressures on 39 dropbacks, 2 hits, no sacks. What are we doing here, guys? Like, and not all of those were on third down. I could probably go look up how many of those were on third down, but still, the larger point is, when it came time to get off the field, the defense couldn't do it. When the offense needed to stay on the field, they couldn't. And the coverage stuff on third down, even though Spoon didn't play, they were supposed to be much better in that regard because of their personnel, because of like the scheme and everything. And guys are running wide open. I think they only got their hands on 1 or 2 passes. I think Tariq got it, or Reek, he wants to be called Reek now. Reek Willen got his hand on 1, and that might have been it, man. Guys were just not getting their hands on passes. And it's bad that it was Puka and Tutu, 2 names that don't even sound real. And those dudes combined for 238 yards receiving. That is bananas. But yeah, Puka and Tutu sound like they made up. And these dudes just went to work on these guys. Now, even if it wasn't 2 made up dudes, that's just bad regardless. I think that's just not everything they tried to work on. Like all the stuff I said, how they rep third down stuff on offense, short yardage, medium, long, red zone, all that. None of that worked. Not a thing. And then the one time they got off the field on third down in the red zone, Trey gets called for illegal hands to the face. I haven't seen a replay of it, but the point is, everything just that they were counting on to happen outside of the run defense, which again was good, everything just fell apart. And that is independent of the opponent. That is very troubling because you want to be sharp out of the gate, at least on the things that, like, if something comes up, you're adjusting to something new. Some teams are going to be rusty, but come on, man. They brought back the same coach, same head coach, same quarterback, same offensive play caller, same defensive play caller, and emphasized things all offseason and just ran out their own gym. Like, and not even necessarily came out flat because the first half I thought was like at least decent. But second half, yeah, man, you got a chance to go adjust, and it's just nothing, man. It was very, very shocking. I was stunned. I thought the game would be close. I picked the Seahawks to win by 4. So I always thought the Rams would cover. But yeah, to the situational football, you can't harp on it any harder because that's all that really matters. Go look at all the good teams every year. Every Super Bowl winner, every division winner, they're all usually pretty solid on getting off the field on third down and then staying on the field on offense. They're all usually good in the red zone. They're usually good on the goal line. They're usually good in 2-minute situations. Like, there's characteristics of a contender. And what happened with the Seahawks showed on Sunday was not characteristic of a team that can contend when we're talking about playing football in December and in January.
The good news is it is 1 week, and we talked about they can definitely make corrections, but they have to. The crazy thing is we talked about this months ago. Their schedule is not easy. They got some really talented teams that they have to play, that they will play against. For example, the Cincinnati Bengals, they probably won't have a game where they only have 3 points again. They were terrible on Sunday against the Cleveland Browns. I don't foresee that happening week in and week out for that team. The Dallas Cowboys, right, on Sunday night, they are cooking. And I mean cooking.
That game's over. They shut them out, yeah.
Yeah. So the Seahawks have to figure this out Sunday. They need to obviously throw this L in the trash, but they got to prepare because they have a long season ahead. And if they don't get this fixed, it is going to be a very, very disappointing season. And I think you say this quite a bit. Heads will roll, Mike. Heads might roll if they don't get it figured out.
Oh, yeah. Specifically the situational stuff, because that's where you start trading folks and firing folks when you can't get that stuff. I do think some of this was just the McVay kryptonite.
Oh, yeah.
He's the only guy I think who can just run variations of the same play on Pete's defense or Clint's defense or Ken Norton's defense or Chris Richard's. It doesn't really matter. Everybody's defense. Whoever's the coordinator, McVay finds a way to give them at least one good butt kicking. And so, but there are some themes here that are concerning, and if they do carry over into these future weeks, somebody not making it, man. Several people probably not making it on both sides of the ball. That's guys who wear headsets and guys who wear helmets. Like, everyone's not gonna make it if something don't get fixed fast.
Well, we have a lot of Twitter questions. Probably won't get a chance to answer them all because, my God, there's like 50. All right.
Yeah, there's a lot of them on the same theme, though. So
that's another thing. But thank you guys for all the Twitter questions. We appreciate all the love and support. Without further ado, Mike, are you ready to tap in?
I am ready. Let's do it.
All right, we're going to kick things off with something that we are not fans of, but comes from Michael Bumpus. Shout out to homie Mike.
Hey, what's up, Bump?
Is there a such thing as too many subs being used in the secondary?
Absolutely. I am like Chris said, we are not a fan on this show of rotating guys in the secondary, and not necessarily just sub package guys. Like, every team has a nickel, and then you have your dime back when you go certain situations. Situational substitutions are not bad. I'm talking like, all right, Michael Jackson's in this drive, and Trey Brown's in this drive, and then now we go back to Mike Jack, and then we go back to Trey. Like, no, I like when guys have continuity with the people they're playing against, because there's so much adjusting and feel. Like, I'm working on a Seahawks project right now, and part of the project has required me to go back and look at some Legion of Boom tape. I was actually watching some over the weekend, and you could just see how in sync they were. And it was just from playing together for so long and having all of those reps. Now, obviously, you can't just have a bunch of chemistry week one, duh. But still, like, you're not going to get the chemistry you need rotating guys at spots where guys aren't supposed to rotate. That's corner, that's linebacker. Like I would like those guys to get a bunch of reps together, communicate, feel each other out, have that, twin telepathy type stuff where you don't even gotta say nothing. You gotta do is look at me, roll your eyes, nod your head, scratch your butt, whatever it is. I know you got this, I got that. Like, and that just wasn't there. And you can tell it wasn't there because they're running stuff that these guys can cover. They run like simple stuff. Tutu and Puka they ain't inventing no routes on Sunday. They really didn't. No, nothing. Then Bobby mentioned they spaced them out a little bit more, but it was still stuff they know how to cover, man. And they just were not covered. They adjusted some stuff in game. Like Trey got beat on a ball where they did like a switch release with the man in motion at the snap. I think Tutu is who caught it. Later in the game, they were able to fix those. You could see guys pointing like, hey, you take this guy, I'll take this guy. And they kind of figured that stuff out. It still didn't work. So, yeah, I think there is such a thing. And we saw it. It's the last thing on Bump's question, which I thought was very good. We've seen Seattle try this, and it didn't work that time either. Granted, I think the personnel wasn't as good. But, Chris, you remember in week 1 of 2020, they started, I think, Quentin Dunbar and then rotated he and Trey Flowers. And then they did it against the Patriots. I think Quentin got hurt, but they were getting barbecued against the Patriots.
It's not a good way to run your defense.
I've just never been a fan. It's one of those things where it's like there's a few things in football like this, and this is one of them for me. If it was smart, more teams would be doing it. And it's like there's just a reason nobody's doing it. Now, that's not true of everything in the league. Like, for example, I think everyone should teach their backup snapper. They should teach their backup center to be their long snapper. That seems like a no-brainer to me, but no one's doing it. But in terms of rotating corners, like if it was a good idea, Bill Belichick would have tried that a long time ago, and it would have worked. It just doesn't. I feel like they should pick a guy. Everybody else, every other position, if someone plays well, they still have to sit the bench if they're not better than the guy in front of them. I think you should make that the case at corner to get some continuity. Continuity ain't the only reason that they didn't perform today, but I do think that, there's certainly you can exceed the limit on substitutions of your base defense, and they're doing it. Like, I do not think they should try that in Detroit. You can try that at home maybe because it ain't that loud, but like your defense won't be that noisy. You can still be able to hear. Don't try that on the road when it's harder to communicate. Do not do that. Like I pray that Clint and Pete squash that Monday morning with the whole substituting their guys in the secondary thing.
This next one comes from Hawk Strologer. Which position group would you put this defensive collapse on the most? Seems intermediate, was severely abused, and run D held up pretty well, which we agreed upon.
Yeah, I don't think it's one position group. I think everybody has to look themselves in the mirror after today. And to be fair, a lot of the leaders I talked to, they did. Like, Quandre was like, we got to be better in the back end, and Chenna Nwosu was like, we got to be better up front. And they both right. It was like, hey, it starts with us. Each guy said that it starts with their position group. And I don't know if they can both be right technically, but they're both right. Seahawks man to man says they can both be right. So they're right. Yeah, the guys didn't get any pressure. Guys were running wide open. In the secondary, I don't think it was any one position group. I think they play off of each other. If the coverage was stickier, Matt would have held on to the ball longer and he would have got sacked. And if the pressure was better, some of them passes would have been not as on target, and the secondary would have been able to make plays on the ball. Like they work off of each other, and neither group was great today. Again, the run defense was the only thing. We keep talking about how it was good here. I'll give you a number to back that up. The Rams running backs, I can't remember their names off the top of my head. Doesn't really matter. But they combined for 81 yards on 37 carries. That's an average of 2.2 yards per carry. If you average 2.2 yards per carry in your running back room for the rest of the year, your running back coach is getting fired and all the running backs are getting traded. Like, that's awful. And even though, as Chris mentioned, they had some short yardage success and got a lot of first downs, I think they ran for like 8 first downs. The running backs did. Their first down rate was about 18% that they converted on, which is not great. For example, I'll give you last year's number, right? Last year, the average first downs per rush was 25%. The lowest number was 19.5% by the Jets because their run defense was garbage. Or excuse me, their rushing offense was garbage. They're at 19.5. So the Rams today, in terms of first down percentage on the ground with the running backs, was 18%. If they do that all year, McVay might get fired, right? Or he have to give up play calling duties. So that puts in perspective, the run defense was fine. It was the one good thing from today. Everything else was bad.
This next one comes from Eric Miller. How many first-round picks should the Seahawks be willing to send Kansas City in order to get Jones? Chris Jones, that is. This pass rush is devastating liability as it is.
Yeah, that's tough. I don't think the Chiefs are going to give up Chris Jones because no matter what they're offered, to be clear, the reason being that Chris has basically already not called his own bluff, but he's telegraphed his pass. Like he says he's basically going to come back week 8 or week 9 or whatever it is, because that's when that's the latest he can hold out without losing an accrued season. And the reason that's important is if Chris Jones holds out longer than week 8, when he does come back, if he does come back at all, his contract won't expire. It'll just roll over and he'll be in the same situation again with 1 year remaining on his deal. So he won't hit free agency and be able to leave the Chiefs or get paid by someone else. He would just have to then hold out again next year too, and he'd be a year older and he wouldn't have played any football. So Chris has to show up. And so if you're the Chiefs, you're like, all right, cool. We'll take our lumps. We'll see you in week 8. That still gives us half the damn season to get it together, and we get to see you in the playoffs. And as long as we got Chris Jones in the playoffs, we can still go and compete for a championship. That's what the Chiefs, I'm sure, are thinking. So, no, they're not going to trade for Chris Jones. I don't think they're going to trade for anybody. I think they're going to try to, hope that their guys are better next week and have when Jamal gets back, maybe start to blitz a little bit more and stuff like that. But no, I think they're going to roll with who they got up front. And I don't necessarily fault them for that approach because they do have guys who can do it. But yeah, they just didn't do it on Sunday, which is another disappointing thing. You got guys who have the talent who just didn't perform.
This next one comes from Brandon Haddock. Why do you think Pete was comfortable with the interior part of the defensive line, despite fans, experts, and analysts saying it wasn't that good?
Yeah, so part of that, and I believe this on a philosophical level, is if you can't necessarily give in to what fans, quote unquote experts, or any pundits on TV say about your team, you just kind of have to do what you do and have your philosophy and your beliefs and analyze your own roster with the knowing that you have more information than everyone outside your building. Otherwise, you can get kind of lost, kind of following trends and believing what people say about you, good or bad, right? So that's part of it, and I kind of do believe that that's Pete's stance on it. Actually, I know that's Pete's stance on it, so that plays into part of it. The other thing is the interior, I don't think was the problem. Again, listen to those run numbers I just gave you. 2.2 yards a pop, 8 first downs, maybe more first down. I got that number wrong, but it's a single-digit number. The point being is the run game is not why they lost today. It was because Matt Stafford threw for 334 yards without Cooper Kupp.
And he had a single touchdown.
Yeah, and he didn't have he had 7 explosive completions or something like that. That's 16 or more yards. Those numbers are what you point to. Were they? Oh, wow, those are all on third down. That's bad.
I'm pretty sure they were. I'm trying to do them in my head, trying to remember each play, but I know a lot of them were because a lot of them showed Tutu running down the sideline. Van Jefferson, well, he dropped one, but he did come back with another one, and then Puka going crazy on him. So I want to say there were a lot of them for sure.
Yeah, he had 7 explosive completions. Let me see how many were on third down. He only had 2 on third down.
Really?
Wow.
They'll like more.
Yeah. But still, the point being is that's why they lost. I think the interior was fine. I don't know how many snaps, if any, Cam Young played or anything like that, but I thought up front they were doing their job, like to stop the run and all the different things that they were trying to do. Perimeter runs, interior runs. Again, the short yardage stuff on the goal line, you don't want to give up any touchdown runs. That's tough on 3rd and 2 or 2nd and goal from the 1. Like those are tough. But the bigger body of work, it took them nearly 40 carries to get 80 yards. Like you're not going to see many better run defensive performances the rest of the year from any team. That's about as good as it gets.
This next one comes from Holly. Do you think if Jamal and Witherspoon were on the field, they would have made a bigger impact? And did either of you guys expect the game to go the way that it did?
I'll speak for myself saying, no, I did not expect it to go that way. The Spoon and Jamal thing is interesting because I still think the answer is yes, in part because the continuity thing we mentioned. If, let's say, Jamal and Spoon played today, that would be their first game together, right? Like that, maybe they've been in some walkthroughs together, but the walkthrough ain't the real thing. So I do think it does take some time. This is where like preseason and stuff would have really been nice for those guys to maybe get some reps, Jamal and Spoon. I mean, get reps with the rest of the guys. I remember, I think we had Quandre on the show to talk about that maybe after the 2020 season, because you guys remember in 2020 the world was like half shut down except for football. So there was no preseason games, and they had a new secondary. They had traded for Jamal. They had traded for Quentin Dunbar. So they were incorporating new guys in the secondary and had no preseason games to kind of work out any necessary kinks. And remember, their passing defense was just awful to start that year. So I think that down the line, Jamal and Spoon will make a difference. In this game in particular, I'm not quite sure, just because the communication, who knows if it would have been on point the way it needed to be, and the continuity stuff to handle everything that the Rams were throwing at them. And then part of it, hey, man, I tweeted this too because people were tripping. It was like only seeing the plays where guys were running wide open, which I acknowledge that those happened. Matt Stafford was in his bag today. Like, there was some tight window. Like, he had one, like a tight slant to like 2-2 between like 4 Seahawks. That were just nails.
Laser.
Like a couple in-breaking joints to Puka that Puka dropped. One of them was just like in between, I think right in front of Bobby or somebody, maybe right in front of Julian Love, I think was one of them. Like, Matt was dealing, man. The corner route that Puka beat Mike Jackson on to the Rams sideline, like, he threw that with pressure in his face, bearing down on him. And come on, Matthew was dealing. Like, that wasn't. There was some of them throws that it don't matter if it was the Legion of Boom out there. It would not have. Matthew was he's for real, and he's part of the reason why I thought that the Seahawks wouldn't overlook the Rams, because of the respect they had for Stafford. Because Stafford he's carved them up before, so I would have thought that no matter what, they would respect him. I know Bobby respects him. I know Quandre respects him. You know, that's his dog. I think Matthew might be the first guy that Quandre hugged when the game ended. Like, they love each other for real. So I didn't think that they would overlook him. But to hear after the game the guy saying, yeah, the Rams played harder, they wanted it more, I was like, damn, what did y'all want? Hey, y'all ain't want to win. That's pretty crazy. But yeah, to answer the question, I'm not really sure Spoon and Jamal would have made a huge difference in this game. Down the line, I do think getting them in will help.
Yeah, I don't know on that one. I remember one play, Julian Love was guarding Higbee on a third down, and Higbee ran a really great route and got open. And Stafford hit him on the money in stride. And I'm thinking, is Jamal able to cover that? Because I know there's people that just are done with Jamal. And in my head, I'm thinking, could Jamal cover that? Obviously, I remember the play, I think it was 2 seasons ago, when Higbee beat Jamal on a corner route. And I remember Troy Aikman on the broadcast, I'm pretty sure it was Sunday Night Football, and he was saying
Thursday Night Football.
Thursday night, he was saying, man, you're paying this guy X amount of dollars. He has to be able to make that play. I think that play would have been made on Sunday against the Rams. Now, I could be wrong, but those are the throws where, as you mentioned, he was doing his thing on Sunday. He was healthy. And when he's healthy, he's definitely a problem. And as far as the question was regarding, did I expect this type of outcome? No. I knew it would be a close game. Well, I thought it would be a close game that the Seahawks would win. I picked the Seahawks to win 24-19 or something weird like that. And that didn't happen, obviously. But I knew the Rams would play tough. If I was a gambling man, I would have taken the Rams plus 5.5 points without hesitation. Easy. Because Sean McVay, as we talked about earlier on the pod, he just knows what he wants to do against Pete. And he does it, and he executes. The players execute it. And they came out with a win on Sunday against the Seahawks. Next one comes from P_Joel. How does Draymond Jones factor into this defense? How does he contribute?
He's got to get to the quarterback. But it's not just him. You know, I was thinking about Draymond and Chenna in particular when I was kind of looking back, and I'll watch them on the All 22 when I get a chance. For those two in particular not to get to the quarterback, I thought was concerning, because it's very similar to the arguments people make about Jamal Adams, and I'm fair. I agree with you guys in that. You pay somebody, you know, perform according to what your contract says. Chenna just got a bag. Draymond just got $50 million. Didn't either one of them touch Matt Stafford today. That's a problem. It's a real deal problem. And they have their ops. They had some. There wasn't a lot of like in the past. We've seen some Sean McVay teams protect the quarterback by having a lot of play action stuff with deep drops and max protections, tight ends in, running backs in, and they had some of that stuff today. But a lot of this was just Matthew Stafford shotgun, trusting his linemen, throwing darts. Like these were pure pass rush opportunities that they were given. I don't know if all 39 dropbacks were that, but a decent amount, enough of them to the point where those two guys should have got to the quarterback. I should say that. And they know they should have. But yeah, Draymond should have. Let me look at Draymond's number, see if he had like a pressure or anything today.
It's pretty quiet. I don't think he would.
Looks like Chenna had 2 pressures, and Draymond had 26 pass rush snaps and no pressures, no quarterback hits. That's can't happen. That just can't happen. I'd have to go rewatch and look at Dre in particular to know why that happened or what happened on his rushes. But just statistically, you can't have that. That you should never have that. Whether you're a rookie or making 50 mil. If you put you on the field for 26 dropbacks, like you should, or 26 pass rush snaps, you should at least hit the dude at least once, So yeah, I think that I don't know how he did in the run. I thought he was okay. I thought everyone was pretty solid in the run. I thought the run Boye was a monster in the run. I thought like
all that in preseason, so I'm not surprised to be honest.
Yeah, Boye, Chenna, Bobby, all those guys playing good against the run was like, yeah, solid. I think Kobe got in there a couple times too, like Jordan Brooks as well. So, but to answer your question about Draymond, like I think there's gonna be an open competition probably in practice this week to get in that first team cheetah package. And we've talked about the cheetah package on the podcast before. That's what Seattle calls its third down pass rush group. It's usually got 2 inside guys, 2 outside guys, 2 best inside guys, and then 2 best outside guys. I think today it was like Darryl Taylor and Chenna on the outside and then Draymond and Jaren on the inside. That may be the case week 2, but after a performance like that, this is one of those situations where if you're the D-line coach, you'd be like, all right, open battle. Who wants to be first team cheetah or one cheetah, like one being, the ones. Who wants to be one cheetah? You do it like the Joker did in The Dark Knight, where you break the pull stick, throw it in the middle of the dudes, and you say, all right, cool, we having tryouts. That might be the thing you do after a game in which Stafford drops back that many times and guys you're expecting to get there don't get there.
This one comes from Young Slick X. More concerned about the offense or defense?
It's a good question. Offense. I expected the offense to be further along because they're not really incorporating that many moving parts. They got the same dudes, same 3 tight ends. On third down, they have the same like primary running back. I know they use Travis Homer, but DJ Dallas and Travis were got a lot of the same reps, doing a lot of the same stuff as far as the third down back. So, but even if that's the case, like, all right, you're replacing Travis and you're adding Jackson instead of Marquise Goodwin. That unit I thought was supposed to cook. Did Noah even get targeted today?
No.
Noah didn't have a target, which is not totally surprising because I believe on one of our pods we mentioned that Jackson's targets are going to come at the expense of someone, and I guessed that it would probably be Noah, and that's what happened. So, yeah, I think the offense really, really, really should take a look at itself. Everybody, too. I think maybe that's the coaching staff as well, but it was just not there, man. Guys were not on the same page. Like it started up front, and then I have to go look at some of the routes, but it just was not there. To be 2 of 9 on third down, that can't happen again. If you're 2 of 9 every week, somebody getting fired. So the offense, I would easily more surprised and like concerned. Because I think the defense was always going to have some growing pains, but I thought the offense should have came out hot out the gate.
This next one comes from Joey. Was it me or did it seem with JSN, Jackson Smith, and Jigba, that is, the Seahawks were doing gadgety things with him and the offense overall? This wasn't what the Seahawks fans saw last season.
No, I don't think so. I see gadget stuff as like fly sweep stuff. Stuff like that. Honestly, some of the stuff we saw with like Cade Johnson in the preseason, that's probably a good example. Maybe even DJ Dallas too. Some stuff where you're not like running a route and getting open. As much as I hate screens, at least when the Seahawks run them, like the little quick stuff to Jackson, I'm not like super opposed to. I don't have like his full route tree in front of me. I could probably look it up, But I don't think he ran a bunch of gadgety stuff. He probably ran some go routes, some stuff over the middle. Like on DK's touchdown, I think he ran a whip route, I
Yeah,
want to
he
say.
did.
But
Yeah.
yeah, but it's like it looked fine to me. That's one of those I probably have to go back and really analyze. But when I was going through my notes, I was like, oh yeah, Jackson's fine. They ran 13 plays, I think, in the second half. So, probably half of those might have been runs. So at that point, I don't really expect anyone to get like high usage. I think DK only had 2 targets in that span, for instance. So I'm not really too concerned about that. But I mean, damn the usage, give him the ball, particularly on third. And he's got to catch that one from Geno too. Like, even though he would have been short, you still got to catch it. Who knows? Maybe if it was 4th and 1, you just sneak it with Geno and you keep the change rolling. Like he's got to play his part in that regard too. So I'm not too worried about his routes per se.
I will say I'm not a fan of the quick screens to him. I want to see him downfield, but they really didn't have any rhythm. So they were trying to just get him the ball to do something. Maybe he can pop, and it didn't work. I don't expect him to catch a lot of the quick passes to him in the flat. But if that's something that they're trying to do with him and it's successful, I will not complain. That's fine. So we'll see how the season progresses with him. But from what I saw in the preseason, there was a lot of play action and him doing crossing routes, which he was money on. And the Seahawks really didn't get him involved that way on Sunday against the Rams. But maybe we'll see that against the Lions. This next one comes from Zach Nixon. Long-term effects of no Charles Cross or Abe Lucas looked pretty evident without those two in the second half of the offense. Just wasn't working.
Yeah, I think I mentioned this earlier. I don't think Charles and Abe are better than their replacements. Like, that's pretty fair to say. I think everyone could acknowledge that. That's why those two start. But I don't think it was like, oh, damn, Charles is out. Now we can't move the ball. Nah, man. They were just rough. They were rough. And I don't even think it was – I'd have to go back and look. I don't think Stone was out there getting just worked, that's why they couldn't execute. I think it was a little bit of everybody. I don't think guys were on the same page. Geno threw 6 straight incompletions on third down. That is rough, man. One of them, he just sailed over DK. One of them was Jackson dropping one. A couple, like I mentioned, where like the protection just for whatever reason just looked off. Not guys getting beat, like free rushers coming. I don't know who. Maybe that's an Evan Brown thing, supposed to communicate that, sliding protections. Maybe that's a Shane thing. Maybe that's a Geno thing. But yeah, long term, yeah, if you have to play without Charles, that stinks. I think it's good that Charles got carted off and then came back and probably could have came in an emergency. Like if Stone would have gotten hurt, maybe they put Charles back out there. So like a sprained toe, I think is what it is. Like that hurts, but it's one of those you can kind of thug it out for a little bit, I'm sure. I don't know what's up with Abe Lucas's knee, but that's another one that long-term would stink, but I don't think is like the reason they couldn't execute stuff today. But yeah, you don't want to have those guys out for long. Like that's pretty rough. That will be a problem if like one of them has to go on IR or something. We'll probably know more from Pete on that on Monday, but Charles, I wouldn't be too concerned about if he was able to come back and like have his helmet on and be like, all right, I'm cool. Whereas Abe was kind of just, and even Abe didn't get carted off. He was just kind of chilling on the sideline, testing his knee out, nothing crazy. So, and even Pete said he doesn't have an injury, so to speak. So I wouldn't be too concerned about it right now. Now, however, I will say I am aware, as much as you guys are, that Pete is a largely untrustworthy injury source. Like we can all agree on this show that he is. That said, I'm reading not only Pete's language on that, but then the guys on the sideline as well. I actually probably trust that a lot more than what Pete says. And Pete knows that too. He just be guessing, man. Like you can't do that.
Got a few more, Mike. This next one shows a picture. It's the pass chart from Geno Smith, 16 to 26, 112 yards, 1 touchdown. Over, 3 plays, over 20 plus yards. Basically, he wants to know, how do the Seahawks not throw the football downfield pretty much at all?
Yeah, Geno, I'll put that in perspective statistically because, again, this is the show where Mike is just bombarding our listeners with statistics, but it's great because that's what I'm here for, I'm a nerd. Geno averaged 4.9 air yards per attempt. That is disgusting. I would like to put that in perspective as to what last year's number was. I don't have that in front of me, but You can ballpark like the average probably being around 7 or 8 air yards or something like that. I think Geno was around like 8 or something last year. I think Mariota or Tua is who led the league last year with like around like 10 air yards or something. So per attempt. So that's 4.9 is one of those that if you have that for the most of the year, you're probably getting fired. Or, they're going to draft Caleb Williams or something like that. Like, that's one of those statistics. So I won't say that part of it was the protection. Like, some of that stuff was just not on the same page with the guys. Like, there were free rushers in Geno's face quite a bit. And then he did take some shots. The one to Tyler in the end zone. He had one to DK that he overthrew. I think he had one more as well. Like, he took some shots. They just weren't landing. But yeah, I think they should have took a few more. I think part of it was just that the Rams run that too high stuff, so they were able to take some shots underneath. And not shots underneath, but just like dink and dunk it a little bit, which is not the worst thing in the world. So, but yeah, it was dink and dunk city today. That air yards per attempt number was yucky. I'm gonna try to find, as Chris reads the next question, I'm gonna try to find what he was last year, because that stunk.
Well, we're a team, Mike, so I took care of it for you. He averaged 7.6 per area, 7.6 air yards last year. Intended air yards, that is, excuse me.
Yeah, see, that's about average. Yeah, the average last year was 7.7. Boom. Yeah, 4 point whatever he had today. That's worse than Matt Ryan last year, who was at 6. That's disgusting. So I don't think that'll be the case though going forward. That I would attribute entirely to Geno. I don't have the all 22 from today to really say, oh, this is what they were doing against on this down and yada yada yada. I've only seen the game once with like a few replays here and there, but I just know Geno likes to let that thing fly. So he's going to do that going forward. I'm sure. And having to throw the ball in the dirt a couple times probably didn't help. That hurts that number as well when Geno didn't have a ton of attempts today. So, or at least didn't feel like he had a ton of attempts. So yeah, I think that number is going to go back up pretty quick. He's going to start hitting them deep balls to Tyler Lockett here pretty soon. You guys already know that's going to happen next week.
This next one comes from at Cascadia Coog. Are Seahawks fans overreacting after a home loss in the first week?
I can't throw every fan in a bucket like that. There is some overreaction for sure, but I do think some of it is like pretty measured. Like, I don't know if we have that question in here, but one of them was like, at what point we start worrying about like Pete? He hasn't had a good defense in years. And I think that's perfectly fair. Now, they have 16 games left, of course, but the Seahawks haven't had like a above average defense since 2017. That's a half decade of not good defense. And that spans like what, 3 different coordinators? Chris Richard was the coordinator in 2017, and then you hire Ken, and you fire Ken, you hire Clint. So I guess technically that's just 2 coordinators, but still, you've changed the coordinator. And if you have another year of bad defense, that'd be 6 straight years of not good defense. That is something that's legit. The third down stuff, that ain't just isolated to this year. We've seen that other seasons. So are there some overreactions? Sure. Are the Seahawks already like, let's draft Shadur Sanders? Probably not. Although, boy, he is killing it. But I don't think they're at that point. Like, let's draft Shadur, or let's go talk to Drake May's parents, or let's fly out and have dinner with Caleb Williams before we play the Rams down in LA. Although maybe they would. But I don't think they're at that point. It's week 1. Tomorrow is overreaction Monday. So like, it makes sense. This is the only sample people have to judge, and they think that what happened week 1 is going to happen every week. I understand that. I always feel that way with my fantasy team. I overact like hell to a good week and to a bad week. But I think that in general, a lot of the stuff that I'm seeing people be worried about, like one team playing harder than the other, defense not being able to guard stuff from Sean McVay, like those are things where I'm like, that's worth being concerned about week 1, because damn, that ain't fixed yet. No, that's legit. So no, I wouldn't say every Seahawks fan is overreacting, but some of these concerns are legit. They seem like they're carrying over from last year instead of just being like a new issue.
All right. Drum roll. Last one comes from Lance Zimmerman. That was a terrible drum roll. Oh well.
Yeah, that was not great, man.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. It's week 1, but where should Seahawk fans be on the panic meter?
Let's see. That's a good question. How do we want to do a panic meter? We want to do words. We want to do like 1 to 10, 1 to 100.
1 through 10 works, I think.
Um,
I say 5.
I, yeah, I would say, yeah, probably like 5 or 6. 5 or 6 sounds about right. The thing that would push it to 6 for me is um the belief that the Rams played harder thing,
Yeah, that was
because that don't got nothing to do with no scheme. That's just, I don't care who the coaches are. I would always want my team to play like we want to win. Like we should play harder than the other team. Maybe the other team's better than us that day. It happens. Maybe, we get couple bad calls, drop a pass or two, miss a block. That's whatever. Like miss a tackle happens. Right? Football, there's a lot of things, a lot of moving parts in football. But if you just be like, dang, they really wanted that more than we did. Damn, man, they wanted the first game more than y'all. Now, when guys say that, I don't necessarily think every player on the Rams wanted it more than every player on the Seahawks. That's just not how that works. It feels like that when you read the quotes, it's like, or you hear it, it's like, well, dang. But no, there were some guys out there today fighting for their lives on the Seahawks and on the Rams. But that part I never really liked. It reminds me, Chris, of last year when what happened in week 2 was attributed to like an emotional hangover from beating Russ and the Broncos in week 1. And I was like, that's bad. That's awful. You were so hyped about beating Russ that go down to San Francisco and get smoked 6 days later. What's wrong with y'all? That's that type of stuff I would never want for like whether I run the team, whether I root for the team. I never want the other team to play harder than us. That's just crazy, especially the first game, and we at the crib. What? No, that's crazy. But yeah, 5 sounds about right because I do think there was a bucket of things that feel like, uh-oh, here we go again. And like we talked about it, some of that is, dang, are we going to have another season where the pass rush starts off slow? Or dang, got another season where there's just this simple concept that can't cover. Or here's another season where the offense is great on first and second down, but isn't good on third down. Like those are issues that feel like carryover. Whereas some stuff I do think is just playing McVay. Some stuff is probably guys not playing in the preseason. There's a few things there. And I do think there were some positives, particularly with some of the run stuff. I thought Ken Walker ran the ball really well on Sunday, like really decisively. In some instances, like not a ton of juke, and he juked when he needed to, but then like I think he met some linebacker in the flat and just ran dude over. Yeah, like you want to see that from Ken, like don't just you got other moves in your bag other than juking and spinning and whatever. Like you can run through some cats. You don't skip leg day. So I think that was encouraging. And again, the run defense, they harped on that all offseason, and today it was great.
Front center.
So yeah, so I think because there was some positives and because some stuff was like Rams and week 1 specific, I'm probably right where you are, Chris, in the 5, maybe 6 lane. But yeah, this was bad, man. Getting smoked at home week 1 by that team. Come on, man. That team is not good. The Rams might not score 30 points again till like Thanksgiving. Like that is not good. I'm telling you guys. Like I remember I was talking to a player. I'm not gonna name the player. That wouldn't be useful. But he was really mad, after the game. But he was mad because he's like, dog, they're not good. He was like, Mike, that's not a good team. Like sometimes just like, oh, they got a good team over there. It is what it is. No, he was like, no, they're not even. We messed up.
Yeah, that's like, right. I alluded to that earlier.
I was like, you're right. You're right.
Yeah, exactly. I alluded to that earlier with the comparison. You lose to the Chiefs 30-13. Damn, it was their day. Pat Mahomes, we couldn't do nothing. Okay, we get it. Travis Kelce had 3 touchdowns. Pat Mahomes threw it to him. All right, cool. But to the Rams, you look on that roster. Who are these dudes? But you still got to go out there and play. They get paid too on the other side. And I think that's where the Seahawks, they thought, we got this in the bag, bro. We got our guys. We're going to go out there and dominate, not remembering that you still got to play the game. You still got to execute. That's one thing that the Rams did on Sunday against the Seahawks. They executed. Matt Stafford did his thing. And that's what it came down to. But those are all the questions. We appreciate all the love and support. Thank you for tuning in for another episode of Seahawks Man to Man. Mike, is there anything you want to add before we shake?
Yeah, one thing that'll be interesting to observe, actually two things. One, never kick, because had a whole lot of never kick there in the second quarter. Second thing, it'll be very interesting to observe how the Rams look the rest of the year, particularly in the games without Cup. Like, you guys remember, we've seen this before where guys just look generational against the Seahawks and then don't ever look like that again. TJ Hawkinson is never going to have as many receiving yards as he had against the Seahawks in week 4 last year. I would bet my life on that. Julian Edelman, I don't think has ever had as many yards as he had against anyone else in the regular season as he had in the Seahawks in week 2. I feel like 160 or something like that. Just absurd. If that happens this year, we're like, I think Tutu, Atwell, and Puka both they had 119 each. Yep. Chris, what do you think the odds are that A, they either have a game where they both go for 100, or B, that either one of them even goes for 100 again the rest of the season?
That's a great question. I'll be honest though, I think those guys are talented. I'll give them credit. I know I didn't watch any film on BYU. I know you had the Senior Bowl and you saw, I think, both of them, Tutu and
I saw
Puka.
I didn't see Tutu.
Okay. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. I think they have another game this season where at least one of them gets 100. I don't think they both will get 100 because obviously Cooper Kupp will be back, and I just think defenses, they have film on these guys now. That's another thing. The Seahawks didn't have any film. Now, obviously, you can say the concept that they're going to run might resemble this. And what this is single or doubles, pretty much 2 receivers on each side spread out. The Seahawks the Rams stack it. Obviously, the Seahawks didn't have those two in the game plan dominating the way they did. But at some point, you have to realize what's going on the field. Gun spread, doubles. What are we seeing here? What are we getting? What action are they going to do? They didn't have film on those two dudes. So that's a little excuse I'll give the Seahawks. But outside of that, I would say that, one of them will at least get 100 yards again. I'd put $100 on that. And if I lose $100 on it, oh well. But I think they get another 100, one of them at least.
Do you know what Tutu's season high last year was in receiving yards?
Probably 20 yards.
It was 62 yards.
Oh, yeah.
In the first game against the Seahawks, he had 3 for 20. He had 2 catches for 27 yards. In the rematch, he had 2 catches for 48 yards. Today, he had 119. Man,
shout out Cooper Kupp.
and this is Puka's first game, so we obviously don't have that same type of sample size to go off of. But that's gonna be something to watch going forward. I think that there was somebody else. Oh, it was John Ross. How did I forget that? John Ross one year against the Seahawks had like 100 yards and like 2 touchdowns. And I'm pretty sure it was like the only 100-yard game of John Ross's career. Yeah, John Ross against the Seahawks it was also in a season opener, which is noteworthy. He had 158 yards and 2 touchdowns against the Seahawks. John Ross had one other game in his career in which he had over 100 yards. It was actually the following week, and he lost to San Francisco. He had 112 and a touch and never touched 100 again. I feel like we could be seeing something like that where like guys just look generational against the Seahawks. Well, we'll see. Can't guarantee that, but that's something I'm kind of looking out for because there's just no way that those dudes should have carved up the Seahawks like that. I know Stafford was good, but man, if those dudes could be in sync, why couldn't the Seahawks? To me, that's my question. So that's the last thing I have before we sign out.
Yeah, that Rams spread offense, man. I'm telling you, ran the same concept. We're gonna spread you guys out, and we're gonna stack it, and we're gonna send guys over the middle, send guys to the flat, and you're not gonna be able to stop it. And that's what they were successful at. But we appreciate all the love and support on the road to 4,000 subscribers. So for you new listeners that are tapping in, instead of just coming back every week when you see a new pod, just go ahead and subscribe. I know you're thinking, do I want to do that? Just go ahead and do it. That way, when we drop a pod, whether it's with a guest or just us rapping about the game, you'll get the notification. You can come join us. Other than that, we appreciate it. We will catch you guys next week after, hopefully, we can talk about the Seahawks being 1-1. If not, boy, that'll be a tough start. But other than that, we'll talk to you later.